You gotta love the apostles, right? Here they are. They're walking on the way with Jesus. They've seen all the miracles Jesus has performed. What are they doing? They're arguing about who's the greatest. Sounds like the last time the clergy got together. The deacons and the priests. Who's the greatest? Very seldom do people ever say, I'm the greatest, right? Usually, what do? It's that sense of entitlement. It's that sense of my way is the right way. It's that sense of we want to be in control of everything instead of giving control to God. And so we see this when we talk about the vices, the vice in particular of pride. You know what they say about pride, right? We're talking about arrogant pride. Pride comes before the fall. You guys know that saying, right? Pride comes before the fall. It happens all the time. Whenever I fall, I look back and I go, oh yeah, prideful. And so this is the same thing that's going to happen to the disciples, the followers of Jesus. Pride comes before the fall. They're arguing who's the greatest. They end up denying Jesus, abandoning him, betraying him. Pride, their pride, came before their own fall from grace. So it is in our lives as well. Pride comes before the fall. We may not be saying I'm the greatest, but what we're really saying is we're placing ourselves over and above the good of somebody else. Placing ourselves over and above the good of somebody else. So we see it sometimes in our places of work. We see it in our schools. I dare say we even see it in our families. Let me ask you, husbands and wives, any of you ever place yourself over and above your spouse? Never, you're a smart man. Any of you remember the last time you did it? How'd it work out for you? Not so good, right? Anytime we place ourselves over and above somebody else, we're prideful. Pride comes before the fall. We're going to be taking a header, just like the apostles did. And so we saw it in our gospel reading with the apostles. We see it in our own lives. How does Jesus respond to it? He takes a little child. He takes a little child. He places that little child in their midst. What is Jesus teaching them and us? For a little child to grow, it must be served by others. For us to grow, we must serve others. For us to grow spiritually, for society to grow in goodness, we must serve others. Just like a little child needs to be served. St. Augustine, one of my favorite saints, 3 most important aspects in the spiritual journey. If you want to grow spiritually, if you want to mature spiritually as a person of God, 3 things you have to do. First, and they're all about attitude. The first attitude is humility. Humble yourself before the Lord our God. The second most important aspect is humility. And the third, you guessed it, humility. We cannot grow spiritually, we cannot grow stronger unless we are humble. If we humble ourselves before God and before others, truly we will love God and we will love others. We will serve others. The importance of being humble, the importance of humility in our lives. Easy to do? I don't know, not for me. So, let me tell you how to be, let me tell you how not to be humble. That's easier for me to tell you about, right? Because I'm the greatest at not being humble. The other day, I'm at the car wash. And after the car wash, I run it through the machine. And I'm drying my car off because there's still spots on it, right? And this homeless guy comes walking up to a nearby trash can. And he starts going through the trash can. He's throwing trash everywhere. Trash in the wind, blowing all over the place. Trash everywhere. I hate people who litter. What's the first thing that comes to my mind? Littering. Oh, I hate it when people litter. So what do? I say, hey, you got to stop that. You're littering. The trash is flying all over the place. You know what he told me? He said, that's not littering. This is littering. And he dumped the whole trash can out right there. Trash everywhere. So pride comes before the fall. I had to humble myself and pick up all the trash as he walked away. How would that situation have gone if I had asked him, hey, could I buy you a meal? Instead of saying, hey, you're littering. Now, I was right. So often we can be right. So often our way can be the right way. But do we need to impose our way on everybody? Do we need to control situations? Do we need to feel entitled in our lives? Because when we do that, we're saying we are the greatest. You saw how it worked out for Father Dave. I humbled myself and picked up the trash and thought, boy, if I had just asked him if I could buy him a meal, how much better that situation would have turned out. You see, here's the truth. We cannot be humble people unless we place ourselves in the shoes of others. We cannot serve others unless we place ourselves in their shoes. The only way that we can ever serve others is by first placing ourselves in their shoes, walking in their shoes. Jesus did this. He came to earth to be one of us, to walk amongst us. He came to know us. He loved us from the beginning. Jesus didn't have to go to the cross and suffer and die. He could have just ascended to heaven. He could have shared his message with us and then said, okay, I'm out of here. See you guys later. No. Jesus knew what it would take to defeat the power of sin and death. Jesus knew what it would take to open the gates of heaven, the gates of salvation to all of humanity. Jesus walked in our shoes. He knew what it would take. He knew what it would take. And so now it's up to us also to not think so much about ourselves all the time, but to think about others and the good of others, not to place ourselves above others. How many of us have forgotten that the very basis of marriage is the total self-giving of self to your spouse? A total self-giving. Jesus gave us that example of total self-giving on the cross. He showed us the way. He gives us the strength. And now it's up to each one of us to give ourselves totally for the good of others, not thinking so much of ourselves, but the good of others.